Live from my treadmill, which is off, so I don't make anybody motion sick, as I do every month to answer any questions you may have. For those of you unfamiliar with my work, every year I read through every issue of every English language nutrition journal in the world, so busy folks like you don't have to. I then compile the most interesting, most groundbreaking, most practical findings, new videos and articles I upload every day to my nonprofit site, NutritionFacts.org. Everything on the website is free. There are no ads, no corporate sponsorship, no kickback, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything. Just put it up as a public service, as a labor of love, as a tribute to my grandmother, whose own life was saved with evidence-based nutrition. If you are watching this on Facebook or YouTube, it's this weird vertical format. That's because we're also now streaming to Instagram. So I had to go from kind of landscape to vertical. So sorry if that looks a little weird on your browser. First question up. How can one maximize nutrient absorption in a whole food plant-based diet? Particularly interested in nutrients important for brain health. Nutrients important for brain health, lutein and zeaxanthin, are fat soluble, and found concentrated in dark green leafy vegetables, most concentrated. But because they're fat soluble, if you eat your greens without some source of fat, they will largely go right through you and you flush them down and not do you any good. Now forget your brain doesn't even make it into your bloodstream. So that's why we want to mix our grains with some form of fat. What's the best way to get fat? The best way to get all our macronutrients, our protein, our carbs, our fat, through whole plant foods. So what's a whole plant source of fat? Avocados, nuts, seeds, nut butters, seed butters, right? Sprinkle some sesame seeds on your steamed greens, or make some kind of, tahini dressing, or I don't know why I'm thinking sesame today, but there's all sorts of, you can add some slivered almonds. I like to make pesto with either walnuts or avocado, make it really nice and creamy. So anyway, you want to have fat in your stomach at the same time you have dark green leafy vegetables to get that lutein into your brain. Next up, Alexander, if I want to fill capsules at my one with spices, I have problems to integrate in my daily diet. Which capsule material is best? So actually, interestingly, probably the best way to do it that I found is using edible film. It sounds so weird. One ingredient, potato starch. It's these thin little round discs they're so thin they're transparent, you can't even see them, sheets of potato starch. And so you can put all sorts of nasty powders, anything that tastes gross. A lot of people don't like turmeric, things like that I recommend. And you make a little pile, you wrap it up like a little wonton or a little dumpling, and you dip in water, and it kind of congeals together, covering all the powders, and then makes this nice little slippery pouch, which is squishy. So you think like, wow, I couldn't take a pill that big. But no, the pills are hard. And, this is just squishy. And so you put it on your tongue, you don't taste anything because it has this like coating of potato starch. It's really weird. And then you just swallow it down. So that's what I do every day. So my current spice mixture is quarter teaspoon of turmeric, quarter teaspoon of black cumin, quarter teaspoon of ground ginger, quarter teaspoon of papali, which is long pepper, this new thing I discovered in the How Not to Age. What am I missing? Turmeric. Oh, amla. And the fifth is amla. Talk about nasty powders, which is dried Indian gooseberry powder. So rather than capsules, that's probably the easiest way to do it. All right, next up. And then you just swallow once. You don't have to take a whole handful of capsules. And probably a lot cheaper too. Okay, what else we got? Jan. Is that Jan or John? Jan. I'm gonna make this bigger so I can actually see what the questions are. Besides B12, are there any supplements I recommend for healthy and vegan 80 years old? So at 80, everyone has to be on B12. You don't have to be vegan. In fact, over 65, that's a recommendation from the National Academy of Medicine, kind of the most prestigious medical institution in the country. Everyone has to take vitamin B12 supplements or vitamin B12 fortified foods. And if you eat a plant-based diet, you just have to start that recommendation before age 65 and your whole life. So I'm trying to think what came up in the book. So creatine. So I'm adding creatine to a resistance exercise regimen increases lean muscle mass in older individuals. So that's something I would recommend. I believe it's 3 grams, which is like a teaspoon a day. Um, and I talk about the pros and cons, and so you can kind of make up your own mind over it. If you're getting inadequate sun exposure, vitamin D, I would consider a pollutant-free source of DHA, these long-chain omega-3 fatty acids. So like an algae-based, 250 milligrams algae-based DHA every day. That's something I do. And then, obviously it depends if you're, an alcoholic or, I mean, there's all sorts of, particular situations where you may want to ask your doctor if you were in a particular situation where you need a particular supplement, but that's kind of the general ones that come to mind. Okay. They're flooding in, so I got to go back to the top so I can try to do them in order. So people who got here first will get their questions answered. Next question. Is vitamin D from sun more efficient than supplement? Is it better to avoid sun exposure during peak hours? Okay. Well, I mean, vitamin D sun exposure is remarkable. You can get like 10,000 international units versus of vitamin D from sun exposure, which is, they typically don't sell. I mean, I think the RDA 400 or 600. I recommend 2000. But I talk a lot in the book, particularly the preserving your skin chapter. Talk about 90% of visible skin aging is from sun exposure. So if you care about your appearance, avoiding sun, particularly during the peak hours, applying daily sunscreen, wearing a hat, all those various things you can do will protect your skin from the sun. And so, wait a second, where are you going to get vitamin D from? Well, people who wear sunscreen actually don't have their vitamin D impaired just because most people don't apply sunscreen very well, and enough UV rays actually get through. Not enough to sunburn you or contribute too much to skin aging, but actually enough to get your vitamin D. So, but that's so you can get the best of both worlds by taking vitamin D supplements and avoiding the sun otherwise, if you can. Okay, next up, Roger. Hemp seeds, exclamation point. How do they measure up against flax seeds? Ooh, right, they're actually more nutritious. Well, of course, depends what criteria are. The reason I'm encouraging people the reason they're so important, they're actually part of my daily dozen. My daily dozen checklist of all the healthiest of healthy foods I encourage people to fit into their daily routine. Available as a free app, Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, on both Android and iPhone. And so important, I included. So why flax seeds? Why not any other kind of seeds? Why not hemp seeds? 2 reasons. One, they are really the most concentrated source of the short chain omega-3 fatty acids, alpha linolenic acid. And you really want to, shoot for 2.2 grams a day, which you can get with your tablespoon of ground flax seeds. You can also get some from walnuts, and there's some other foods, but that's a nice flax are a nice convenient source. And also, flax is the most concentrated source of lignans, which are anti-cancer compounds. It's really remarkable. Actually, this is funny. I haven't talked about this before. I just started sitting down to write my proposal for my next book. You'd think I'd let How Not to Age. I haven't even done my speaking tour yet. You think it'd be the copies would be cold before I'd start working on the next book, but I'm always thinking about new research. So next is going to be cancer survival. And all the foods that have been shown, just like how not to diet. I talked about all the specific foods that have been shown in randomized controlled trials to actually accelerate the loss of body fat, right? So every single one, I want to make it as comprehensive as possible. That's what came up with the 21 tweaks. There's lots of things that can accelerate the loss of body fat, regardless of what you eat. And so same thing with how not to age, like what has been shown to actually extend life. And so there's actually specific foods that have been shown to be effective, both cancer prevention, cancer treatment, cancer survival. And one of those is flax seeds. So, researchers find that high levels of lignans in the bloodstream associated with significantly lower risk of breast cancer, for example. Most concentrated form of lignans are these flax seeds. So they just randomized women at high risk for breast cancer to I believe it was a tablespoon a day of ground flax seeds for, I forget how many weeks or months, maybe 6 months. And took biopsies, breast biopsies before and after, and saw significant slowing of kind of precancerous changes. That's exciting. But even better would be to take women with breast cancer, randomize them to flax seeds, and that was done as well, and with biopsy showing significant benefits. And we think it's because of these lignans. And so the only food that comes close, sesame seeds, have a significant amount of lignans, but basically everything else doesn't. And so unless you're eating flax seeds every day or lots of sesame seeds, you're going to be missing out. So that's why it's so important. There's specific compounds like the sulforaphane and the cruciferous vegetables. That's why I recommend specifically cruciferous vegetables. There are some nutrients like vitamin C found throughout the plant kingdom, right? So you can get it from bell peppers, you get it from tropical fruit, you can get it from broccoli. So it's not like, you got to go out of your way to avoid scurvy. But you do have to go out of your way if you're looking for the lignans or the sulforaphane or, these green tea compounds that are found one place in green tea. And there's actually some weird mushroom that has them too. I remember, just like there's one plant, the drumstick tree in Africa, that has the sulforaphane too. It's cruciferous vegetables and this weird tree. Anyway, but in general, right? And so that's why that's why I got books to write. If it was just like eat plants, and it doesn't matter which plants, just sit down to, to iceberg lettuce all day, then, why am I writing books? They could be a sentence long instead of hundreds and hundreds of pages long. Oh my God, have you seen this is so the US version, they printed on really thin paper, but look, this is the regular version, which they print up in the UK. Look at this monstrosity. That is because there's specific foods for specific things. So anyway, yeah, that's why you should eat flax seeds. That's probably a longer answer than you needed. But all right, next up. I understand that soy can inhibit iron absorption. Not that I'm aware of. Oxalate rich foods, so like the 3 high oxalate dark green leafies, spinach, beet green, Swiss chard, are stingy with their calcium. So that's like one mineral inhibition example. Probably for iron absorption, tea inhibits the absorption of iron. So that's why I encourage people, even though green tea is a very important beverage, I encourage people to fit into their daily routine, not during meals. Why? Iron absorption. So that's really what I'm most concerned about. And indeed, adding vitamin C rich foods like the ones I mentioned can boost iron absorption if that's your problem. If that's not your problem, or if you don't know if your problem, you should get tested before you go around trying to boost your iron, because you can have, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You want to have low iron levels, but not too low that you become anemic. Because high iron levels acts as a pro-oxidant, increased risk of cancer, some other things. And so you don't want to go out of your way to increase your iron unless you are a menstruating woman losing iron every month, or for whatever reason, found to be anemic for iron deficiency purposes, or etc. down the list. But shouldn't go out of our way to boost iron unless we know there's a reason to do that. Okay. Next up. Carolyn, in the UK, plant milk. Oh yeah, organic foods are not fortified. It was a big problem because B12, right? So here in the States, B12 is found. So I talk about you need to take B12 supplements or eat fortified foods. And so here it's super easy. B12 is added to everything. Soy milk. There's even some herbal teas have B12 in it. But by kind of organic standards in the UK, my understanding, that you cannot add like extra vitamins and stuff that violates their kind of organic principles. And so the soy milk, which is kind of a regular source of fortified B12 fortification for people here in the States, you're missing out. So it's really more important to get it through supplements. Okay, but so this person's asking on a daily basis, so would it be better to get the fortified non-organic or the organic with no fortification? The most important thing, need to get your B12. And so if you don't want to take a supplement, a B12 supplement, which is super cheap, you can do it once a week. If you're under age 65, 2,000 micrograms once a week, get all the B12 you need. super easy. But if you're just like, I don't like taking pills or I'm not going to remember, whatever, and so I just want to incorporate a food into my diet, then you'd want to buy the fortified non-organic to get that B12. But if you're like, look, I take a B12 supplement, I don't need B12, and what's some of the other stuff I don't need? Actually vitamin D. So vitamin D is added to plant-based milks. The is fortified, which may be an issue in the UK during the winter months. No matter how long you sunbathe naked by the Thames in January, February, you're not going to make any vitamin D because the sun's rays are at such an angle that during the winter months. So studies have found that the levels of in UK vegans actually drops too low for comfort. Non-vegans can get some vitamin D from dairy milk, from fish, but the vegans, presumably because they're, drinking organic milk, not that you need to drink any milk at all, but if they're drinking some organic plant milk, they weren't getting the vitamin D supplementation, they actually dropped too low. But it's fat soluble. I mean, you're not going to die from vitamin D deficiency during those few months, but it does actually drop too low for comfort in terms of optimal health. So for that, so that's a good reason to either, again, you can just take a vitamin D supplement and then be like, just have get the non-fortified stuff. But if you don't want to do the supplement, that would be a kind of cheap, easy way to get vitamin D in a country that is so high in latitude. All right, what's next? Carolyn. Her skin is yellow. Not quite Marge yellow, but yellow from eating lots of healthy foods. Blood tests are normal. That's good. Eating a lot of goodness. How yellow am I? How yellow am I? So that is a sign of health. In fact, I was just at a longevity medical conference in Vegas, of all places. It was fantastic talk, 5,000 folks. A book signing line went on for 3 hours, even though they sold out of books in 20 minutes. So it was just like, it's just juicing me for my 100 city speaking tour, which starts in a week or two. But they had a booth where they had this cool machine, this spectrometer where you basically put your palm on it and it reads, how many carotenoids are deposited in your skin, which is an indicator of how many fruits and vegetables, particularly brightly colored fruits and vegetables like dark green leafy vegetables and cantaloupe and sweet potato and all that good stuff. As a good indicator of health. So like beta carotene levels in the blood are actually a good predictor of health and longevity, not because the beta carotene is just a marker of healthy eating. So it's kind of cool that you can get scored on healthy eating. So it's good having carotenoids deposited in your skin. In fact, I talk about it in my skin chapter. It actually gives you an inside out level of sunscreen, like built-in sunscreen, not enough to prevent skin aging or skin cancer. Like you still have to add sunscreen, but it's like all the little hard to reach places. You don't have to think about it. It's just there already. So there's all sorts of good benefits. Now, you can, if you ate too much, but this usually happens with people that juice carrots. You can't eat too many carrots, like your jaw would get sore. But if you like just put them in a juicer, you can get a huge amount. Like I just had 2 pounds of carrots or whatever in a juice. You can turn orange. It's called carotenoidemia, and it's completely harmless, but it does cosmetically look a little weird. Often shows up first in kind of palms and the soles of the feet, and it takes a while for it to kind of go away. The only other, so basically, it's a good thing eating lots of healthy foods. So I would stick with it unless you're feeling it's cosmetically weird, in which case you can back off a little bit. There is one interesting exception, and that's anorexia nervosa. People, largely women who starve themselves, can get this carotenoidemia. They can turn bright orange. And so they look, Yeah, so it's interesting. I used to have one of these cool spectrometer gadgets. This donor, they're really expensive, like $15,000, but this donor leased one for me from the company so I could take it around and inspire people to eat fruits and vegetables. And it's funny, I would go at every talk, I'd be like $100 to whoever gets the highest score, right? And so everyone would line up. It'd be so fun to like test who could beat Dr. Greger, whose score, of course, is off the charts. And it's interesting. The woman who won at this one particular event, I remember, I think it wasn't because she was eating fruits and vegetables. It's because she was a victim of anorexia. And so if your orangeness is a sign of anorexia, then obviously you need to get help. Anorexia is a mental illness with one of the highest fatality rates through suicide. I talk about it in How Not to Diet, and so some to be taken very seriously. But if that's not your problem, it just means you're eating healthy food, and that's fantastic. Okay. Next up, Danielson. In a recent blog on B12, mentioned fortified energy drinks as a source. Some have B12 added to them. So I put a splash of generic 5-hour energy drink in my smoothie every morning at 10 KRMD, 10,000. It's probably 10,000% of your kind of daily recommended whatever of B12. Would that work? Okay, so how much is a splash? So let's say a splash is like, 100 or 1/100th of a bottle. And is that even reasonable? How many ounces is a typical, like, I guess 8 ounces a cup. So like 16-ounce bottle. So 16 times 28. 48, 28, so that's about 500 milliliters. Let's say a splash is like half a milliliter. So you just added like 1,000th of the bottle, and if it has 10,000%, that just means it has like 100 times. And so you'd only be getting 1/10 of the RDA of the recommended daily intake if you just put a splash. So I don't think the math works. So I would not use that as a source for your B12. Okay. All right. Coffee and a sewing machine asks, let's talk about mushroom coffee. Is it beneficial? Oh, so yeah, I want to make sure I understand what you're talking about. There are certainly like actual coffee that has mushroom powder added. There is like chaga mushroom powder. I don't know if there's actual pure mushroom products that they just call coffee because it's like a warm beverage that they drink it as or something. So my concern with chaga mushrooms is their such high oxalate intake. I think a single teaspoon, you'd have to check the video. Type in CHAGA into Nutrition Facts. It'll pop right up. I think 1 teaspoon is too much, like exceeds your oxalate intake for the day. And so it puts you at risk for kidney stones, particularly if you're susceptible. So that would be my one concern. I guess it depends what mushroom we're talking about here. But I'm all in favor of mushrooms, but certain mushrooms, have to be cooked. Certain mushrooms have to be not consumed with alcohol. So tell me what mushroom it is, and I'll tell you whether you should have it in your coffee. All right. Oh, I got to scroll back up because we're getting too many. Oh, it won't let me scroll back up. Okay. Sorry for all the questions I skipped. It won't let me go back. There's so many questions. So I'll just start where I have, but I didn't skip you on purpose. JM says, I can only find B12 cyanocobalamin 25 micrograms 25 micrograms in chewable gummies in New Zealand. How many should I take if I have B12? Okay. So if you have B12 deficiency, we don't mess around, and you should get, you should be taking 2,000 a day. You should be able to, your doctor should be able to prescribe you 2,000 micrograms of chewable B12 a day, even if you can't find it around. And worst comes to worst, get B12 injections. Oral B12 is actually superior to B12 injections, but if you can't find high doses, high enough doses to treat deficiency, then you need to absolutely get injected with B12, because it's B12 deficiency can be absolutely devastating. All right. High prolactin levels, question mark. What's the cause and how to bring them down to normal? That's a good question. I'm trying to think if I have any prolactin videos. Nothing that comes to mind. If you type in prolactin NutritionFacts.org, let me know if anything pops up. If it doesn't, let me know, and I will add it to my topics list to do the next batch of videos. That's when I'm going to start in July. So 6-month speaking tour, January through June, 100 cities, and then July, bam, start churning out the new videos. I actually have enough videos queued out until then, so I have to do videos on the road. But then I'm going to run out of videos, and so I need topic suggestions. Particularly if there's something, I mean, of course, I'm going to do more videos about everything, right? But if there's a topic that's actually not on Nutrition Facts at all, there's not a single video about it, that really should be my priority. And so prolactin may be one. If there are other conditions or foods that aren't, let me know, and I will prioritize those to at least have something on the topic on the site. Okay. Next up, do I need to remove almond skins before making almond milk? You do not need to remove almond skins before making almond milk. Okay. Let's see what else. Maria, how to do time restricted eating when you work until 8 p.m. Well, you can pack food. So time restricted eating, we want to, what's critical here is early time restricted feeding. So cutting your daily eating window to 12 hours or less, but critically important to shove as early as possible. If anything, we skip supper, we don't skip breakfast, try to push as many calories in the morning as possible so you can make your lunch the biggest meal of the day. And then is there something you can pack and eat at work? Depending on your work, there's lots of kind of healthy foods that you can pack with me. I pack them in my suitcase, can you, take a, big sweet potato in a Ziploc bag and kind of munch on it. Very satiating. It's something I eat on planes. People give me little weird looks, particularly because they're bright purple. I got those Hawaiian sweet potatoes. So it's like I'm chewing into this like fluorescent purple globe. Try to get that through security. I've had lots of questions. Anyway, rather than starting to eat at 8:30 when you get home, if you can stop eating at least before 7, that'd be best. And so maybe you can get away with eating at work. At least that's my suggestion. We are running out of time. I'm trying to think. Let me see if there's some really quick question I can answer. Is it better to freeze baked bananas and then use them in a smoothie? This is such an interesting question. Where did you come up with this thing? I just gave a webinar relatively recently talking about how adding fresh bananas to a smoothie can interfere with the bioavailability of some other nutrients that are in that smoothie. And so ideally you'd use something like, I use frozen sweet potato. Adds a nice creamy sensation and sweetness that the banana has. So you can like microwave them, then chop them up and freeze them and just throw in chunks, or frozen mango or whatever. But this it's all because of this banana enzyme. And so if you destroy the enzyme by cooking it, for example, then you go crazy. And so this person is suggesting, okay, well, we bake the banana, and I give how much, you don't have to heat it up too much, and then we freeze it. Does that work? Yeah, that totally works. Another way to do it is freeze dry. If you really like banana flavor, freeze dried banana, it's not brown. Why is it not brown? Because the enzyme's been destroyed. Remember, it's the browning enzyme. And so you could just add a handful of freeze dried banana chips. I don't know. Anyway, let me announce that it is our end of year fundraiser. If you want to support the work that I do to spread the information about the good news that we have this tremendous power of our health, destiny, and longevity, and that the vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a healthy enough plant-based diet and lifestyle. If you want to save lives, and want to help us get this message out of evidence-based nutrition, please consider NutritionFacts.org, 501c3 nonprofit, so tax deductible here in the United States, as part of your kind of end-of-year philanthropy. We would really appreciate it. And that's so the reason I can give away all the sales, all the money from my like speaking honorarium and all the book sales, all the money I get goes directly to charity, is because I get a salary through NutritionFacts.org. And so by donating to Nutrition Facts, you are putting kale on my table. So thank you for that. And have a wonderful holiday season and happy new year. And I will see you hopefully on the road. And if not, I will see you